Peter.
Good call, Tammy. We gotta clean that out, huh?
Sorry. Okay, I will call the meeting to order for Southern Hampshire Planning Commission Tech Committee, April 20th. Since we don't have a quorum for the folks at home, we can't vote on the minutes. We'll skip over them hopefully till next month. So I'll just go into the new business. So first item would be the 2023 bike month preview, and Tammy Zamoyski is going to talk about that. So Tammy.
Yeah. Can everybody at home see my screen?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Do introductions. I'm sorry. Did I need to do the introductions?
We're okay.
Good. Okay. All right. Okay.
We can do that. We can do that after this presentation.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you all a preview of New Hampshire Bike Month, which is May of this year. So National Bike Month was started in 1956 by the League of American Bicyclists as a way to showcase all of the benefits of riding a bike, as well as encouraging new folks to try biking. This is the generic poster that we put together this year. So we partnered with New Hampshire DOT and the Bike Walk Alliance, as well as all of the RPCs around the state, to promote New Hampshire Bike Month instead of just National Bike Month. So I put some dates on here. We have May 3rd is Bike Enroll to School Day. May 7th is National Ride a Bike Day. It's a Saturday, so you should get out and take advantage of that. May 15th through the 21st is Bike to Work Week, and May 19th is Bike to Work Day. The Bike Walk of Alliance is hosting all of the Bike Month events on their calendar throughout the state. So you can visit bikewalkalliance.org/calendar and see what everybody else is doing to celebrate. I'm working on putting together a poster that's specific for our region, but I wanted to give you a little preview of some of the events that are happening in the greater Manchester area. The Queen City Bike Collective will be doing free valet bike parking at the Manchester Taco Tour. So this is not only a way of encouraging people to bike to the event rather than drive, but also help the flow of the event a little bit too. Last year, a lot of people biked to the event, couldn't find a spot to park, and they were just kind of pushing their bikes through the crowd. So this is a good way to just kind of collect everything in one place. And it's kind of a fun VIP experience. It's just like valet parking a car. You get a ticket, someone parks your bike, and then you get it back when you're ready to go home. May 5th through the 31st, there will be a covered bike parking structure at the Londonderry Exit 5 Park and Ride, which is pretty exciting. This picture on the left is of the actual structure when it was at City Hall in Manchester last summer. And if you aren't familiar with this bike parking structure, it's owned by the Central New Hampshire Bike Coalition, Mass Bike, and Concord Lake Sunapee Rail Trail. And it travels all across the state as kind of like a pop-up demonstration to show other parking options that might be available. And this on the right is the flyer that I developed for the park and ride. So we're going to put this in the buses, the Boston Express buses, as well as the bus station. And I printed out a few copies if you guys would like to take some with you as well. May 13th, the Hooksett Kiwanis are hosting a bike rodeo at their annual Children's Safety Day. So this will include registering your bicycle with the Hooksett Police, which is always fun. You get a little sticker on your bike, you get to interact with the police. There's going to be a bicycle safety inspection, a challenge and safety obstacle course, and free helmets for kids. On May 16th, the New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition, Granite State Wheelers, and Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire are hosting a bicycle advocacy spring fling, and that's at Great North Alworks here in Manchester.
What's a spring When,
It's mostly a social event, but I believe each organization will also be talking a little bit about their mission and what they're planning for 2023.
okay. What time is that?
I believe it's 5 to 7,
Okay.
but I can double check on that. On May 17th, the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire is hosting a relearn to ride a bike class, and that's actually taking place on the rail trail right behind our office, the Piscataqua Trail. I've heard that this is a really popular class, so if this one sells out, I think that they will be hosting more options throughout the month of May. And on May 20th is the Tour de Francistown. This is a gravel ride taking place in the area surrounding Francistown, and there are 25 and 50-mile options if you're feeling ambitious. And then I also wanted to mention the Commute Smart New Hampshire Spring Challenge. Every spring, Commute Smart encourages everybody to log their sustainable trips. So that's anything other than riding alone in a car. So whether you're carpooling, working from home, if you have a compressed work week, biking, walking, using transit, anything that gets you out of riding your car alone, you can record your trip and then compete in the workplace challenge. You can compete as an individual, and you're also entered to win gift cards. Actually bought these shoes that I'm wearing right now with the gift card that I won a couple of months ago. Pretty fun.
Should put them up on the screen.
Yeah. Something else that I recently learned about the Commute Smart software is it's a great way to find a ride. So if you're looking for someone to carpool to work with, or if you want a bike to work and you want to ride with somebody, you can put it up on the website and see if anybody responds to your inquiry. And last but not least, because 7 years ago today, on April 20th, 2016, I was riding my bike home from work and I got hit by a Dodge Ram truck. So I'm very thankful to be here today, and I just wanted to remind everybody that April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. So please be careful out there. Look out for other drivers, motorcyclists, bicyclists, pedestrians, people using mobility devices, everybody. If you have any questions about the events today, or if you have any events that weren't mentioned, feel free to reach out. This was me during the October challenge. So this was Halloween. It's hard to see, but I do have a broomstick.
I do see that.
No.
Excellent. Thank you, Tammy. Any questions for Tammy out in Zoom land? Okay, I'm gonna do a quick introduction because I know I missed it when we did the opening of the meeting, so I'll just start with the folks in the room and then I'll go out to the Zoom folks. So people know me, I'm George Sierras from the town of Derry.
Tracy Whitehead, from CART MTA.
Nancy Michaels, Dairy, London Dairy Chamber.
Zach Swift with the commission.
Suzanne Nienaber with the commission.
David Tillman, Southern New Hampshire.
And Adam Hlasny with the commission.
Tammy Zamoyski with the commission.
And Sylvia Von Allock with the commission.
Do you want me to read them or should they say it? How do you do that? So I forget.
Oh, go ahead. Lucy, why don't you give us a quick intro? Lucy there she is.
Good morning, Lucy St. John, New Hampshire DOT.
Thanks, Lucy. Kristen?
Hi, Kristen Clark with the City of Manchester.
Thank you. Jason?
Good morning, Jason Cleghorn, City of Manchester.
Cam?
Dan Perlman with the Planning Commission.
Becky?
Good morning, Becky Hebert with the Town of Bedford.
Ricky? Did we do Ricky? No.
Nope. Good morning, Ricky DeSillo, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services.
Thanks, Ricky. And we have Nate.
Good morning, everyone. Nate Miller with the commission.
Thanks, Nate. Did I miss anyone? I think everybody, yeah. Good.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, next item on the agenda is the electric vehicle charging plan update. Again, Tammy's gonna give us information on that.
Okay, can everybody see my full screen?
Yep.
Thanks, Cam. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a project update on the SNHPC region's plan for electric vehicle infrastructure development. The purpose of this plan was to support the adoption and transformation to electric vehicles throughout the region and between all of New Hampshire's regional planning commissions. We also wanted to identify sites so that when funding becomes available, we already have an idea of some of the locations that are really regionally significant. This is a map that I think you've seen a few times. Carl liked to use this one to show that there is a fast charging corridor from Montreal to New York City, and New Hampshire is the missing link when it comes to charging infrastructure. The FHWA and New Hampshire DOT is focusing their NEVI funds, which is the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Funds, on these alternative fuel corridors. So it's kind of hard to see, but in our region, that only includes I-93 from Hooksett to Manchester, New Hampshire Route 101 from Bedford to Manchester, and New Hampshire Route 101 from Candia to Manchester. And the goal is to get one station at least every 50 miles. So back when we started this project, we formed an EV working group. This group is made up of town planners and economic development directors from Bedford, Chester, Derry, Goffstown, Hooksett, Manchester, Wyndham, and New Hampshire DES. And this working group identified the SNHPC fast charging corridors, and I'm going to let Zach talk a little bit more about how they chose these areas of interest.
Sure. So we tried to identify corridors throughout the region that were used for, regional longer distance travel. And within that, we wanted to highlight areas that were very accessible. So we looked at within a quarter mile of those routes or a quarter mile of an exit from a limited access expressway. So the routes were 93, 293, the Everett Turnpike, US 3, 101, 102, 111, 114. And originally that was what we had. And then the working group also suggested that we add 28. So we did that as well. And then we had the opportunity to try to narrow down all the sites we were looking at. So we from the state, we got a list of 13,500 businesses that we could potentially look at. Clearly, we're not going to look at all those. So we then determined that about 6,100 were in within that 1 quarter mile buffer. We tried to identify particular types of businesses, and we landed on gas station, grocery stores, and then also added later state liquor stores that were as possible, natural sites. Then that's where we're seeing them having somewhat naturally occurring as right now. We also looked at some hospitals, colleges, parking structure, and parking rides, or even if they were outside of that corridor. Most of them aren't. Most of them are within that, but there are a couple that are, a little bit outside. But we want to make sure we include those. And then we also added some additional public sites, whether it's a town hall, a park, something like that. Especially if it was in a town that didn't have any qualifying sites, there was about, I think, 4 towns that don't have, don't really have sites along those corridors. We want to make sure that they had an opportunity as well. That gave us over 100 that were identified and reviewed by criteria and looked at with municipal staff. And of those, about 60 potential DCFC or level 2 charging station sites were selected.
And in case you're unfamiliar with DC fast charging and level 2 chargers, fast chargers are going to give you a full charge in 20 to 30 minutes. So those are really good if you're just having a quick stop somewhere. Maybe you're on a road trip or, doing a quick grocery shopping run. Level 2 is more for work or for places where people are going to be parking their cars for a long period of time, like a park and ride. So that takes 5 to 6 hours for a full charge. And then, of course, level 1 is super slow. You just plug it in overnight and it charges in your garage.
So this is an example of one of the maps that we did, and here you can see, for example, Manchester, the Manchester Airport is on there because it has a parking structure, even though it's outside of that particular range. So we want to make sure we include those sort of things. And then, see other places like Chester Academy, the park and ride at exit 5. Some travel centers, and then there's a number there along 102 in Londonderry Dairy that we can't see in this particular map because it's in a different zoomed in set.
So could you go back to that? So these aren't all the sites, these are
No,
just
no, I'm sorry.
examples.
This is just the, this section that's of the region.
And the pink is sort of that quarter
The
mile.
pink is that quarter mile. And you can see there's like, right now right there in Londonderry Dairy, there's that little pink section where exit 4 will be. And there's obviously no sites in there right now because the site doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, that's good.
We also wanted to highlight, the equity area and make sure we were getting some, access into that area. And luckily, even just naturally through the route selection, the region's equity area does have reasonably good coverage through, some of the highways and then, Route 3 and 28.
Okay, so then the working group identified some of the potential sites for each community. So we looked at if phase 3 power was available on the site, which is essential for fast charging. And then they also looked at if it was a fast charger candidate or a level 2 candidate. So again, just looking at how much time someone would spend at this location. The fast chargers are significantly more expensive than the level 2 chargers. So you want to make sure that you're properly prioritizing that. And then for each site, we also looked at the AADT for each location. If there were restrooms available, how many parking spaces there were. There's only 5 parking spaces. You don't want to take up 3 of them with charging. And then also the services that are near the charging location. So somebody has something to do while they're charging. And then finally, we wanted to prioritize each of these sites. So as you walked in, there were worksheets with the potential sites listed by each community, and I will let Sylvia talk about what some of our criteria were.
All right, and can you bring
and I
up
will
for,
share the PDF with everybody online.
and is it, if possible, people at home can pop over to this PDF? Is that possible?
Yes.
So in the chat, Tammy has just put in the spreadsheet that we're looking at, and we were hoping for some feedback. We've done an initial prioritization, so we'll wait a moment to see if, why don't we go back to the stop sharing a moment and see if everybody. So does everybody have this in front of them on their own computers? A little thumbs up is always good to let us know.
Yes.
Okay, so I've heard from Jason. I'm gonna assume everybody else is, maybe they had to step away, or Lucy, do you see that? I got a thumbs up from Cam, from Kristen. Do you see that, Lucy? In the chat? You're muted.
Yeah, yes, I do. I opened it up.
Okay, great.
Are
So,
you gonna share it on the screen though? I think, or you're just,
well, yeah, we can share that on the screen. All right. So just taking a moment. Okay, so can you see the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Thanks, Cam. So what you have here is each community's sites. So we'll start, let's take a look at Auburn. And what you can see here, we have a priority rating, but we haven't actually done anything to the rating. We're just leaving that blank for now. We've kind of grouped them as far as what our initial thoughts were for prioritization. So you can see the location. So to begin with, there's the Griffin Free Public Library. You see where it's located on Route 101, exit 2. The address specifically, whether we think, I mean, we're not electricians, but whether we thought there was phase 3 power, whether it was a candidate for a fast charger or a candidate for level 2. And so if it had 3 yeses, that was, it ranked pretty high, but we also considered, well, how close to the route was it? Was it easy on, easy off access? And also, what would you do once you got there? Because knowing, even with a fast charger, that you'd have about 20 minutes or so before your car was charged. So was there something to do? Was there an activity? So you can see why we'd rank the library versus the police department. You know, all depending what your business is, of course. Hopefully not so much business at the police department and more at the library where, you know, you have, well, all friendly people, obviously. There's also then not a private business, but also obviously open to the public. So that got ranked in the middle. So what we're hoping today is, so we have right now, we have Bedford, Derry, Manchester, and on today's call. So maybe what you can do, so Bedford, Becky, if you'd be so kind to quick look at how we ranked those with the library, then, and Hannaford and Market Basket, we felt were fairly similar. So we didn't really, you know, we just put them sort of 2, 3, and then the Irving Station. Any thoughts on that, Becky?
Sylvia, I think that looks good. I think the library is a great central location. And it's a place where people can sit while they charge. Hannaford's on 101, also a great location, and we don't have things heading out on that westerly on 101 on that corridor. And Market Basket, same thing. It's a great location. We already have a few existing charging stations on the South River Road corridor, so these seemed, we agreed with all of them. So.
Excellent, thanks, Becky. And you see, like a community like Candia only has 1, if you would scroll down, Tim. And then Chester, we have very similar, the municipal center, which we recognize is a bit off the main route, but it did score yeses on all 3. And then there's the library and Chester Academy. Derry, so let's focus on Derry since we have George here. And again, our thought, because of all the activity, you used to have the chargers at the Derry Center. So we still think that's a great candidate. Of course, the library. The problem with the library, though, is it has very minimal parking, from my understanding.
Exactly, yeah.
So that might not score as high as, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the community center and the medical center.
I would switch. I mean, I would put the Garage Community Center number 2 and the library number 3.
Okay, great.
Because you're right, Sylvia, the parking at the library is not very well. There is municipal parking a block over. But Marion Garage has a lot of on-site parking as well as public parking on the street in front of it. So and it looks good. I would just reverse the order and park the medical.
You can do it later.
Yeah, yeah. And then Parkland Medical's fine, to the hospital, obviously they have a lot of parking, but they're
Nice.
not. They're not downtown, they're 5 minutes away, but the other three are all downtown for the most part, there's more to do downtown.
Okay, great.
That looks good.
All
Thanks for the
right,
feedback.
thank you. Let's see. Why don't we have Nancy here and you're covering the chamber, Londonderry Dairy
Yeah.
Chamber. So let's pop over to Londonderry then. So here we have the Park It Ride at exit 5. We have all 3 of the different grocery stores.
Yep.
We have the travel center, another Shell station, liquor store, and then the Park and Ride at exit 4. I don't remember, Tammy. I think it's because, the maybes. That's why. If it had 3 yeses, we ranked it higher.
Yeah, the
Any-
market basket and the liquor store at exit. That's at exit, at exit 4, right next to each other.
Okay, so we would take one of those. So you're saying New Hampshire Liquor Store and Market Basket are sort of one and the same?
Yeah, it's in the same.
Okay, so we would rank. Yeah, okay, good job. Any other thoughts on that list?
Somebody said something about Park and Ride before, that it doesn't exist. It exists. There's a building there. I don't see any traffic. It's all gone to exit 5.
Okay,
And there's been no traffic that I've seen. A couple of years ago, you saw the places where you could sorry, folks, senior moment, where they could do slot machines and all that, go down to Massachusetts. That's the only
take a
thing
bus to the casino. or
Yeah,
something.
to the casino. That's the only thing I have seen in the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay,
Exit 4 in my office, actually, I would look like over there.
okay, all right.
But I mean, there's a structure there. It's used, people use it for Park and Ride because there's no bus. It's all at exit 5.
Okay, let's pop over to, since we have Manchester online, let's look at Manchester. So, we have the Catholic Medical Center, and the reason why we put, both of these high up, for our Manchester team is because of having something on the west side. So they got rated a little bit higher, plus the West Manchester branch is very close to the senior center. It's right next door. Then as we scroll down, we've got, not quite that far down. Right, the other part, the library parking lot. Market Basket, Livingston Park, we ranked relatively high. Let's see, Arms Park, Dairyfield Park, the Vets Memorial Park. And then there's some garages. So we put all the garages pretty much together. The airport, another parking plaza, and then the wine outlet and the fire station. Even though that has all 3 yeses on the lower ones there, we thought it would be, we just didn't feel like it ranked that high. So any thoughts from Manchester team on this lengthy list?
From I guess in terms of like the garages and stuff, I think that the veterans garage should possibly be higher because that's where they have a lot of permits for people for like monthly parking. So you might have more people that are like going there consistently long term that might use this while they're at work.
Okay.
And I think Arms Park is a good location just because it's like in the middle of all the techie areas and where you might see a lot more people with these type of vehicles.
Okay.
So I think that one has some good potential that, in my opinion, might want to be higher. But
Okay.
those are just a couple of quick thoughts I have. I don't know if Jason has any.
Jason, any thoughts? Okay, maybe he had to step away.
Jason put in the chat that this was the first time he saw this list, so he wants to do more research.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think given the
Obvious-
number here, I think a broader audience in Manchester might help weigh some of these too.
Sure, and what we can do is send this out to our commissioners and as well to the broader TAC group.
It's like the mall in New Hampshire too. The
Oh,
mall in
yeah.
New Hampshire,
I think it already has.
it exists already, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some, I believe for a lot of these, if there was already a site or if there's area was already
Go
well
back to
covered,
that.
like, I think Becky mentioned, South River Road in Bedford already has at least one.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
so
so
that, those didn't
is
belong.
that
Thing that make on the list.
Okay.
There are some that might
Go back to
now
that.
currently, just based on the, like, there are some that are like being developed that might now, or I should say, they're on the list, but are currently have ones that are going to be installed.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll distribute this, and this was Carl's project, so I'm not actually sure who was on the EV stakeholder committee,
That
so,
was Jody Nizaka for Manchester.
okay, so we'll distribute also we'll send it to Bev as well, but.
Yeah.
And we're not looking for new ones, we're just wanting to prioritize these. All right, go ahead, Tammy.
Okay, so now I just want to wrap it up by talking about some of the funding opportunities that exist. Right now, the hot one that everybody's talking about is the federal grant program called the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure, or CFI Discretionary Grant Program. Up to $700 million is available for this fiscal year, and it's broken up into two different pots of money. The community charging and fueling grants, and then the alternative fuel corridor grants, which wouldn't really be applicable for our region since there are just little parts in our region. And the MPOs and the local governments are eligible to apply for this. There's also the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust. The purpose of this pot of money is to alleviate the excess nitrogen oxide emissions that were caused by Volkswagen violations over the past few years. New Hampshire's share of the trust is $31 million. So with that money, 4 Irving stations in Hooksett and 1 gas station in Manchester made it onto the priority list. So as this money trickles down, those will be the projects that will be focused on. And then we have the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or NEVI, which we spoke a little bit about earlier. So that was $17 million that will be distributed through fiscal year 2022 through 2026. New Hampshire DOT is overseeing this funding source, and as we mentioned earlier, it's being used to develop stations along the alternative fueling corridors. And I just wanted to share some resources. The New Hampshire Electric Co-op has a Drive Electric program and website that has a lot of really great resources on it. Some of the incentives that they provide information on include the commercial EV charging station incentives, EV rebates. So if you want to buy an electric vehicle for yourself, there are also EV time of use rates. So you might get a discount if you charge your car during off-peak hours. And all of that is available on the Drive Electric website. So our next steps are to finish working on the draft plan and continue to get feedback from the working group. We still have a few folks that we haven't heard from. And then we will be presenting the final to you guys again and the MPO for adoption once it's ready. And if you have any questions, here's our contact information.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Tammy or Zach? Right
It looks like Ricky has his hand up.
Hi, yeah, just a quick correction I wanted to offer. First off, thanks for this presentation. This was great. Apologies for having to step away during part of it, but you know how things go. I came back in right around when you were showing some of the great funding programs that are available and what other programs are out there. I just wanted to clarify for the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust fast charging program, which I manage. We have selected a few projects already and 4 of which have been approved. So we can talk a little bit in more detail about which projects have been selected now.
Okay.
And the Manchester project was not selected. And of the Hooksett projects, only 2 of them were selected. Of course, this is all with an asterisk of at this moment. Things could change if a project drops out or if something happens. But as the moment, we do not have a Manchester project in the works, and Hooksett would be 2 projects, not 4.
Okay, thank you. I'll correct that in the draft plan as well.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Ricky. Any other questions? Seeing none. Okay, thank you, Tammy and Zach. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Moving on. Next topic is climate adaptation case study, and I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne Nienaber.
Got
Say that
it. You
correctly?
said it exactly right. I'm really impressed. Yeah, it's not easy, I know. Okay, so you're gonna have to, the order of doing this is first make it big and then do the Zoom share.
Do the share and then.
Do the share and then make it. Okay. But you're always a little bit tricky. So I'm gonna share my screen. Take a look at this. And then I'll make this big. All right, so folks can see this in full screen.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, so really happy today to be able to present some updates on our climate planning work. I'll do a few things this morning in the next 15 to 20 minutes. I'll give a very high level overview of the initiative just as a reminder of what we're up to. We'll dig into some workshop insights. We had a fantastic regional climate workshop last week, and I'm excited to talk about that. And then I'll share some upcoming opportunities that hopefully some folks will be excited about. So as a reminder, we're really focused on some serious regional climate concerns. I think there's a great quote that Tammy pulled from one of our resources that, on a warming planet, when it rains, it pours, right? We're going to start to see a much higher number of heavy precipitation events in our region. We'll have higher risk of flooding, and that makes our infrastructure very vulnerable. And we're particularly looking at stream crossings, bridges, culverts, and other parts of our community that are going to be impacted due to this change in precipitation. The work we're doing now is building upon really extensive prior efforts that SNHPC undertook to complete a regional vulnerability assessment. This mapped culverts and small bridges throughout the region. It's developed a kind of rubric to evaluate, which ones were most vulnerable to extreme precipitation events. And there's an online GIS map that inventories this. It's interactive. It shows who manages the culvert, kind of the level of vulnerability, et cetera. And Zach's your go-to guy if you want to learn more about that. So this also really sets the stage for us to have a baseline of knowledge to do some serious climate action planning. So what we're doing right now, we're looking to expand our current technical analysis. So Zach is kind of taking the lead on this front. We're mapping a wider range of vulnerabilities. So in addition to just the stream crossings, we're also looking at where roadways are in floodplains, where we have steep slopes, where we have the potential for fluvial erosion, like a riverbank kind of shifting that could impact some of our roadways. We're really focused right now on federal aid roadways, and that might expand over time. We're also wanting to provide some practical implementation guidance. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is a roadway adaptation toolkit, and there's a lot of ways to get involved with that. And then, of course, we want to advance regional climate collaboration, right? There's a lot of people who care about this. There's a lot of opportunity for us to start taking some pragmatic action. So we're going to be hosting annual climate workshops, and we just had our first one last week. It was a great event. Thank you to Town of Dairy for hosting an amazing space. And Yeah, we so enjoyed it. So this was last Tuesday. It was broadcast via dairycam.org. And also, if you look at your the staff report that I prepared for this, that's a direct link where you can actually view the workshop in its entirety. I have to say, like, Dairycam's amazing. There were like different camera angles. It's like cinematic experience. So
It was.
He was a good catch for the town.
oh, no kidding. Yeah. So compared to like your average, like watching a Zoom recording, this is like way more dynamic. So I really recommend checking it out. If you're over lunch one day, if you're at your desk. We had more than 40 participants involved with this session, and more than half of those were in the room, but we also had some fantastic online turnout. So Cam was our online ambassador and managed that side of the world. Just a couple highlights we did a pre-workshop survey to get a sense of who was in the room and what brought them here today. And as you can see, climate concerns are top of mind, as you might imagine, among a group of people that self-select to go to one of these workshops. People were also very interested in collaboration and access to resources, and that's definitely something we'll be kind of promoting throughout the course of our work together. And we also wanted to get a sense of folks' areas of expertise, and we recognized that a lot of people in the room were wearing multiple hats, so they could pick up to 3 options. So you can see the planning, transportation, environment, and conservation were kind of the dominant perspectives, but we had a really nice range of people coming at this from many different angles. And I think this also gives us an indication of where we could potentially do additional outreach for future events to make sure we're getting folks involved in the public works side, the public safety side of the conversation as well. I kind of like this graphic. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about climate impacts in your community? And, we had a score of like over 80% in terms of our level of concern. So, we're just at the beginning of this journey together. And I think we'll probably, the climate change is only becoming more urgent and scary. So this is good to know where we are at this baseline. And then in terms of our agenda, just to kind of take you on a little journey of what happened. We had a mini keynote from Federal Highways Administration to talk about a lot of the work that's happening at the national level and give us a preview of the PROTECT program and the funding associated with that. We had a fantastic panel discussion with more of a kind of statewide perspective on climate leadership and collaboration. And you can see we have some fellow RPC folks in the room, Megan Butts and Dave Walker. We had the Nature Conservancy there, and we also had UNH Center for Climate Infrastructure Resilience. So it was a really cool mix of perspectives and a really valuable conversation there. We had some fun collaborative breakout discussions. And then we also had a report out, and that was a really dominant part. And what I want to do right now is give you all some insight into what we talked about during the collaborative work session, because this kind of feeds into the content that will underpin our toolkit. So what basically over the past several months, I've been doing a kind of a detailed resource scan of everything that's out there, federal, state, local resources that are talking about climate adaptation, particularly around roadway adaptations. And basically it kind of breaks down into 5 broad approaches and strategies that would fit under these 5 categories. So I'll present each of these. I also presented this out at the workshop before people broke into their small group work. We gave everybody a worksheet that they could actually kind of jot down notes on and ask them to do a couple things, including marking what they saw as priorities and giving some additional insights on what the applications they saw for various strategies in their community. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through each of the 5 areas, give you kind of a high level overview of some of the strategies we're talking about, and then also flag a particular insight that we gleaned from the workshop. So design and engineering. Some of the strategies on this front have to do with, having climate-ready roadway design standards, really rethinking how we're designing our roadways, our stream crossings, and making sure that we are cognizant about incorporating the latest climate data and really thinking ahead to the future needs. We talked about modeling wear and asset lifespans. What are the performance parameters for our infrastructure? What we thought the lifespan of a particular bridge or culvert, is that actually reflecting reality? We also talked about, actually doing retrofits for particularly vulnerable sites to withstand extreme weather events. And I love a good before and after. This one comes from the Nature Conservancy. of just like a kind of two like smaller culverts being turned into a small bridge. And a sample insight from the workshop, one thing that came out that I really liked, I think this was a comment from Liz Robidoux of like, can we be more innovative in the way that we design so that we're actually able to make some incremental changes, really like set, you know, and as more funding becomes available, have a baseline in place where we can actually make improvements that can be developed over time. I thought that was really a nice note and kind of a very creative way of thinking. And at the same time, I think when I was reviewing workshop comments, there was also a lot of notes about having some alignment and an understanding of that whatever we are doing is going to be matched with state and federal design guidelines and priorities for funding. So I think that there's like the innovation piece and then also the necessary collaboration at all sectors of government. The next big bucket was talking about environmental approaches, and obviously preserving wetlands and floodplains is going to be essential for communities in terms of managing stormwater and making sure that we're kind of protecting our ecology. People were really interested in stormwater management solutions via green infrastructure and low impact development. So thinking about bioswales, permeable pavements, and other types of designing with nature and nature-based solutions to these concerns. And then updating vegetation control practices, really managing some invasive species that are making the situation worse, and maybe planting more flood tolerant species that will be supportive of kind of an environment that is going to get more precipitation. I would say that an insight that came out of the workshop was that there was a lot of enthusiasm around green infrastructure and what the possibilities are for roadway design, as well as broader local land use regulations, right? So I think that people were really seeing the potential for wide scale benefits of these kind of nature-based solutions. For operations and maintenance, I will say, just to back it up 1 second, I will say that in that tally of people who checked that this was a priority, the environmental approaches far and away had the most check marks. So these strategies were the ones that really stood out to folks who participated in the workshop. For operations and maintenance, we talked about optimizing our monitoring and maintenance and replacement of bridges and culverts, making sure we're managing any maintenance backlog, making sure that we're kind of scheduling things appropriately. So we're tracking what's going on the ground. Updating seasonal maintenance programs, and that could mean anything from, you know, making sure to monitor beaver activity to in the wintertime having environmentally responsible de-icing programs like Green Snow Pro. And then establishing more flexible and responsive maintenance capabilities and thinking about and planning ahead for emergency events. And whether that means having some kind of on-call contracts where you've already kind of procured support in case of an emergency, or whether that means kind of stockpiling resources either across agencies or across different municipalities so you can draw upon that as needed. Those are just some of the ideas that were floated. One of the sample insights that came out of the workshop and the feedback we got from those worksheets, I would say that the larger municipalities were pretty confident that they're doing well in this area. Like they don't have a significant backlog, they're not as concerned. Smaller municipalities though did express the need for additional resource, whether that's additional funding for staffing, whether that's better ability to assess and track like updated software, just being able to keep track of things. I think that that's something we can be cognizant of as we think about different solutions for different communities. The next section was around outreach and collaboration. And obviously staff training and knowledge sharing was something folks were excited about. Also public awareness, right? Making sure that the general public is really getting the message and understanding the vulnerabilities of our roadways. And, we're installing safety signage so people aren't driving through a flood-prone area when there's water coverage, things like that. And also strengthening multi-sector partnerships and collaboration, which is something we're really excited to be doing through this workshop and through upcoming conversations that we'll be having. I would say that the big insight, I think, Sylvia, this came out of your group, is just how important public outreach is. We had some road agents from New Boston who were in the room, and they were really adamant that, we need to make this information very accessible to the average resident, right? Because it's a lot of individual actors that are playing a role here. So, keeping driveway culverts clear is a topic that we need to be communicating out to a much more, to a broader public. It's not just kind of a planner's, a public works conversation, it's a community conversation. And then data collection, analysis, planning, and policy is a lot of words there, but really the crux is that we need to be having, a way to have up-to-date data and be confident that what we're dealing with is accurate. So making sure that we're regularly inventorying our vulnerable assets, that we're actually integrating as new climate models come into play, and UNH is revamping those every couple of years, making sure that we are integrating that into our vulnerability assessment. People are excited to have climate priorities and really be deliberate about and implementing those within our plans and policies. And it's, of course, having a climate plan or a climate action plan in place would be fantastic. But in the meantime, how do we also start to integrate those into our hazard mitigation plans and make sure those are in lockstep? Looking at any comp plan updates that are happening or other land use planning that's going on. Our long range transportation plans, of course. And then integrating climate data to guide ongoing decision making, right? I think that there's ways for us to think about what the cost implications are, right? Is there a budget line that we can track whenever there's a flooding or an issue that's being addressed that's due to extreme precipitation? Can we be tracking that so that we actually know the cost of what's happening on the ground now and put that into the equation when we're planning for future improvements? And then a sample insight was just basically like people really were adamant about the need for good data and also the need for changing our scale, right? Municipalities aren't an island that are going to solve, no one's going to solve this on their own. There's spillover effects across communities, across states, across the entirety of New England. So we really need to be thinking much bigger picture in our collaboration and making sure our solutions are as broad of scale as possible. Okay, and then lastly, I just want to talk about the opportunities. So we have all of this great feedback and information. Over the next couple of months, I'm going to be drafting a climate action toolkit that's focused on roadway adaptations. And I wanted to just highlight two key opportunities, engage interest in the room. And also if you want to think about volunteering someone who might be interested, I'm happy to hop on a phone call with anybody or any community that might be a good fit. So option number one would be a little bit more intensive, where we would do a facilitated work session, kind of taking the learnings from this past workshop and sitting down with the community to examine a particular vulnerable corridor. And option number two would be a simpler, like let's have a 30-minute phone call. We'll do a practitioner interview and glean some insights that will be really useful for this toolkit. So for option number one, Zach and I are already kind of strategizing an approach. We would pull all the existing data we have available for a vulnerable corridor. We'd come to your offices and facilitate maybe a 90-minute work session with select staff and stakeholders. Maybe it doesn't have to be a huge group, but 4 or 5 people who are invested in this and coming at it from different angles. We'd see what questions are emerging, and we would do our best to conduct additional analyses as needed. And then we would draft a case study, including some recommended actions for review. And ideally, this would be a tool that a municipality could use, but also that other communities could learn from. And then the other opportunity would just be like, let's have a conversation, right? Let's talk about some of these issues that are important to you. I would do like a structured interview and send some questions in advance and, kind of transcribe our conversation to the best of my ability. And then we kind of identify some pull quotes that would help illustrate key concepts throughout the toolkit. I think it's really, really useful. Like I love creating materials that are very pragmatic, practical, that people can see themselves in. And I think the more we get reflection of people who are doing this work on the ground every day in the toolkit, the more advantageous it will be to anybody who's picking it up. So those are the two major options. And I'll pause there. I have a couple exit survey things I could dive into, but I just wanted to pause there to see if there's any questions or insight.
Thank you, Suzanne. Great job. Any questions for Suzanne, either here or out in Zoom? Ryan?
If we stop sharing. Oh yeah, stop share. Thank you.
And any questions for Suzanne on TV land or Zoom land? Hands up, Kato.
He's back.
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving along, next item is the traffic counting program overview, and I'm gonna turn it over to Ad.
Yep, thank you.
Dave, Bill.
So yeah, Dave and I are gonna kind of tag team this. We're gonna give a quick overview of our traffic counting program and our bike ped counting program. So Dave has come to us from the greater Lowell area. He has some experience in traffic counting. That is why he's been involved with this so far. Whenever you're ready, Dave, you can take it away.
You hit that arrow in the middle of the, go down. Yes, over. See the bar, the long vertical bar? No, over.
Ah, here we go.
Okay, yeah, that one.
You got it.
There we
All
go.
right, can everyone see that at home? All right, hi, my name is David Tilton. I'll be giving an overview of the 2023 traffic counting program.
Did we hear from Cam?
Oh, yes.
I heard Susan say, yeah, we can see it, but Susan's in the room.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes, we can see it.
Thank you.
We can see it.
All right, thank you. This is a couple pictures of our field team. Adam and I will be joined by Anthony Summers, our field technician, starting at the beginning of May. And Andrew Lepog, our intern, will be joining us at the end of May. I'd also like to stop for a minute and give a thank you to Cam and Tammy, who have really stepped up and helped us along at the beginning of this season and really kept us afloat till reinforcements arrive. If I could draw your attention to the photo in the top right corner of the slide. I think this photo really illustrates some of the safety practices and procedures that we implement when we go into the roadway. Before we go into the roadway and do traffic field counting, we have a quick staff meeting with using Google Street View, and we locate potential hazards or also locate areas that we could lay road tubes safely. If you look in the left-hand side of the picture, you'll see our white data collection vehicle that is equipped with emergency flashing lights that we activate whenever we pull over to the side of the road to aid motorists in seeing us throughout the work zone. We wear high visibility safety vests and brightly colored clothes, as you can see by the hats. When working, we also employ traffic cones in high speed, high volume, or low visibility areas to further delineate us from the traffic. You'll see Tammy in the bottom right-hand corner setting up one of the counters. You'll notice that she is as far away from the edge of the road as she can be, and she's facing oncoming traffic. I'm a little bit behind her and off to the side, acting as a human traffic cone to aid in the visibility of us as the motorists pass by and to act as a spotter in case anyone gets a little close. Here we have the three type of counts that we employ. Volume only is our most basic tube layout. It consists of one tube laid across the road with a traffic counter connected at one end. This one only collects the total volume of the roadway. It is our most basic type of data collection and yields our most basic type of data. Next up is our directional counts, which consist of two tubes laid across the roadway, 4 feet apart, with one traffic counter attached to one side of the tubes. This allows us to collect volume data for both lanes of the roadway and allows for a more detailed analysis of the data. Lastly is our class counts, which consist of two knotted tubes laid across the roadway 4 feet apart. The tubes are knotted in the middle, and that knot is laid on the center line. Then a counter is attached to both the left and the right side of the roadway using two counters for this one. This allows us to collect classification data, which is the type of vehicle passing over the tubes, as you can see on the classification FHWA classification chart on the right-hand side. There's different types of vehicles that we do collect data for, from class 1 motorcycles, class 2 your passenger cars, all the way to class 13 your multi-axle, multi-trailer tractor trailers. This year, we'll be looking at 365 locations in all 14 of our communities. The season will last 31 weeks from the beginning of April all the way through November. We will be counting every week during this season, but only in the holiday weeks, we'll be only counting Southern New Hampshire counts. We will not be doing New Hampshire DOT counts during that time. We will put out about 15 to 20 counts per week. And on the week of April 3rd, we did our first field practice exercise where we picked 6 locations around the office. This was to reacquaint staff with safety procedures and equipment. Our first full week of traffic counting was the week of April 10th, where we put 23 counts around the city of Manchester. Here we have a breakdown by community. You can see the map on the left is all the locations that we'll be doing this year. The table on the right and the colored icons above it represent the types of counts and who requested the count. The green icon is a New Hampshire DOT volume only count. The purple icon is a New Hampshire DOT requested classification count. Black is the New Hampshire DOT requested classification count by direction. And the blue counts are all the Southern New Hampshire identified account locations. New Hampshire DOT has requested that we count 201 locations in 10 of our communities. And Southern New Hampshire has identified an additional 164 count locations that will allow us to collect data in all 14 of our member communities. Here we have an example of one of our field data sheets that we take when we pick up or set up counters. At the beginning of the season, staff will import and plot each of our count locations on Google Maps. We will also reach out to all the communities, asking them about road construction projects that are upcoming. We will take their feedback and identify and mark traffic locations that could be impacted by road construction. This will allow us to schedule traffic counts in a more efficient manner that hopefully will not interfere with our traffic counts of their road construction. Once each week, we will identify a cluster of traffic counts that we want to lay out the following week. We will plot an efficient route through that location, and we will draw a boundary around that geographic area. A map will be created that will be attached to the field data sheet and taken out in the field with us. And we will transcribe the information of each one of those traffic counts to the spreadsheet that you see on the left-hand side. It'll be community of the count location ID, the physical location of the count, and the AADT of the previous count. AADT, for anyone who doesn't know, is the annual average daily traffic. And the reason why we have the historic AADT is so we can do a data check in the field of the count. So when we go to pick up a counter, we'll go detach the counter from the tube, bring it to our vehicle, and has a field laptop in there, download the counter, and then we can check the historic AADT versus the AADT that was picked up that week in the field. If the data is deemed appropriate and looks good, it's within the range of the historic, then we will pick up the tubes and consider that location complete. If the data is compromised in some way or we don't feel right about it, then we will put another counter, attach it to the tubes that are already in the roadway, and that count will continue for another week till we can get more clear data. And here we have some traffic counting resources if anyone would like to delve a little deeper into some of the traffic data. New Hampshire DOT has an interactive map that compiles all the traffic count data throughout the state. This map, the data is populated by New Hampshire DOT's collection efforts, as well as the data collection efforts by all the RPCs. Southern New Hampshire also has our own regional interactive map, which has count data going all the way back to 2000 for traffic counts in our region. If anybody would like to request a traffic count or has any questions about the program, feel free to contact Adam or myself at the emails at the bottom of the screen. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Adam for Bike Ped.
Great, thanks, Dave.
Should we pause for any questions?
We have a question slide at the end, but we can pause now if you'd like.
Yeah, anybody in the room with questions or virtually? Okay.
Right, so bike ped counting, I think we've gone over this in the past, but I figured it was time for a refresher. Our program kind of began in 2017 when we purchased our first infrared counter. We bought a second one in 2019, And then just last year, a couple more that are now out on the Londonderry and Windham rail trails for longer term studies. You can see on the chart there, we started small. In 2017, we did 9 sidewalk counts and 1 trail count. The trail counts are indicated by dark blue here. So in 2019, we really went heavy on the trails to kind of get some baseline data around the region. We've increased counts every year, except 2022 went down slightly because we did some longer duration counts at those locations. As I said, we have 2 long-term counts out right now in Londonderry and Windham. Those are for the entirety of the year 2023. And we have 2, I'm sorry, it's okay. 2 temporary installations. Right now, they're on the Heads Pond Trail in Hooksett and on Dow Street on a pedestrian path over here in Manchester. We move those around the region every 3 weeks typically. So we get a good sampling from around the region of bike ped activity. We have, I put on here 65 plus, but I checked it again this morning. We actually have 72 locations total. 20 of those we've classified as high priority, so we count them at least once a year. The other ones are a mixture of, I guess you could say, medium priority and one-off town requests that we would do again on request, but they're just kind of a specific request from a town. The next slide. So here's an example of some. Thanks. Here's an example of some bike ped patterns. This is at the Heads Pond Trail in Hooksett. On the left, we're comparing weekday usage from 2020 to 2021. And as everyone remembers, 2020 was the year COVID started. So this particular count was done in April, just after the pandemic had first hit. So the pedestrian traffic on the Heads Pond Trail was extra high in 2020, even more so on the weekends that you can see in the right chart, where it was almost double what it was in 2021. The pattern generally the same, people going out there kind of in the middle of the day. I think that's the 2 o'clock hour, that's the highest. Across the bottom, it's the profile of a day starting at midnight to the end of the day. So similar patterns weekday and weekend in this location, but a lot more usage on the weekends.
Oh, it took me forever. So weekday on the left, weekend on the right, and that's a full day.
Yep, and 2020 is the teal and 21 is the orange. So I've used this chart in the past. I think it's a good way to compare seasonal usage. This is summer versus winter usage on the Londonderry Rail Trail. The picture there is the counter we have out now off the Sanborn Road trailhead. Winter you see here is blue and summer is orange. And again, you're looking across the bottom is the profile of a day. So on the Londonderry Rail Trail, we're seeing peaks at the 9 o'clock hour in the morning, and then pretty consistent use in the afternoon with a slight peak around 6 o'clock after folks get off work. It's notable here too that despite the obvious higher usage in the summer, the pattern is pretty similar winter and summer. And of course, it drops down to nothing when it gets dark. Another thing we're doing is a Manchester rail trail study, and it says part 2 because we did this last year from April to June. We counted at 3 locations on each of the 3 Manchester trails. So on the left with the red markers, you see the Piscataquag Trail. To the south in green is the South Manchester Trail, and the dark blue to the east is the Rockingham Rail Trail. So each of these trails we're counting for 2-week duration. This was requested by a SNHPC commissioner last year, and it's to get a better sense of where people are coming on and off the trails by doing 3 points along each trail each time. The data here to the bottom right was taken from the Piscataquag Trail last year. We're going to be setting it up again next week to compare year over year. We do have a copy of the summary report on our website under the bike ped section, if anyone is interested in learning more about this. And then moving forward, just yesterday, we discussed team roles here in the office. We have a lot of folks, a lot of SNHPC staff interested in the bike ped counting, which is great. We're just trying to kind of break down duties a little more, so we're using our hours efficiently. With the field technician coming on in a couple weeks, that's going to be yet another person involved. So we're trying to kind of break it into three smaller teams. The field staff who will be out there downloading and transferring the counters, processing and analyzing done in-house, and then kind of packaging it up nicely and visualizing to get it out the door and share it with stakeholders. Right now we have an interactive map on our website. But it's, if you click on a location, you just get a one-page PDF report. So we're thinking also about kind of upgrading that, having a more user-friendly interface where people can look at the data. We've now done many counts several years in a row, so that's a new way of comparing count data that folks might be interested in. And then finally, the chart on the bottom here is our plan from now through October. We kind of have our locations planned out. If we had a town request, we can amend that to accommodate that request, but we like to kind of know where we're going to be heading. And most of these are 3-week increments. Gives us a sense of 1 week you might get heavy rain for 4 or 5 days, and that's going to throw off the count. So by leaving it out there, 3 weeks is a good sample size. And that's all I had. So.
Any questions for David or from Adam? Anybody else? Virtually, any questions for them? Cam, any hands up?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. No one in the room, excellent, good job. David and Adam. So, okay.
Yeah, and like both Dave and Adam said, if any of our communities would like to make specific requests, we're happy to work with you. And that's both with vehicle and bike and ped.
Thank you. Okay, any other business or any new business from anybody? Anyone?
All right.
Seeing none, since it's not a formal meeting, we don't have to motion to adjourn or vote to adjourn. If anyone wants to bring anything else up.
All right.
Seeing none. Okay, oh, great, okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
We'll
you,
see you next month. Thank you.